Am I supposed to tell you if my husband is coming or not?
Yeah, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put him down
He,
then.
he doesn't know that, but
To
he's
the party
coming.
Okay.
tonight.
Okay.
He's not coming tonight.
No, that's fine. I'll put you down for 2 then. No problem.
How come no one wants to sit up in the front seats?
We don't call on you. We don't have secret
Nancy, you
method.
know Rick's not gonna be here. Okay. You wanna hit the mic? I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, December 1st, 2015 to order with roll call, please.
Chapman,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Cavelli. Here. Cosler,
Here.
Kraus.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you, anybody say anything?
Oh.
We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have a couple that signed in. Mr. Verdung, did you want to approach the?
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board and staff. I'm Gary Verdung. I live at 452 Park Avenue. I live right next to the Kalemore Funeral Home, if you know the area, of course. The back end of my house and the back end of our backyard abuts the funeral home parking lot. The parking lot itself, the entrance to the funeral home parking lot is directly across the street from the exit of the new BP car wash on the BP gas station property, which is the northern end of their property. And I think you know the issue here. I've been discussing this issue with the village staff for since June. The issue is the BP put in a new car wash back in February, and now it's emitting noise, and it's been determined that the noise is, in our opinion, is very loud, and it's annoying, and it's an impact on our community. What I have is some brief handouts, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
My wife, Linda, I think I introduced her. My better half, 49 years.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
You're a saint. You're a saint.
Well, in general, you probably know that the car wash back in February, the village building officer approved the installation. And one thing that, which we'd like to point out, in no way are we here to criticize anybody on the village building officer or the village board or the zoning board. However, I do think honestly that when they inspected that new car wash in February, they did overlook the noise. And honestly, I think I would have too. The reason is simply the previous car wash was there 15 years, didn't emit any noise at all. The new car wash is not only quicker, for those of you familiar with that car wash, but it eliminates the car stacking, it uses less water. It's a winner. It's a very good car wash. It's what they call a rollover car wash. The car stands still, the car wash goes over it, rather than a tunnel car wash where the car is dragged through. And what happened is nobody thought about the noise. It wasn't an issue before, but why would it be an issue now? And honestly, I probably would have made the same mistake. Not mistake, I probably would have overlooked it too. So that just is something that came to mind with my neighbors in Silver Lake, Alma Terrace, and Park Avenue area. So the noise began though immediately in March, and we noticed it immediately. We went right to BP, to the owners, not to the owner, but to the manager over there was very nice. He's a good neighbor. BP is always a good neighbor for us in that part of the community. And we simply say that, gee, can't you tone this down a little bit? And he said, no, there's nothing we can do. It's a new system. So then we came to the village. And we came to the village in June. And I went to Mr. John Fitch, who I had met before. And I said, well, John, you know, I think this is a zoning issue. Because I don't know if all of you know, but I used to be on the zoning board many years ago. I'm not a zoning expert, but I did pick up one thing from the zoning board, all those years I was on it, is the fact that in most cases, almost every case that I saw, either the village staff or the board or the zoning board protects the citizens of this village. And I was on that board 15 years, and I know this sounds a little corny, but I was very proud of my service there, I really was. I'm Gary from Cary all my life, so is my wife. We've been in town all our lives. And I was proud to serve on the zoning board to serve my community. So with that in mind, I came to John Fitch and I said, I think this is a zoning issue. He said, no, hold it on, wait a minute. Let's look into the situation. And that's when him and Mr. Simmons went into the situation and found out, they analyzed the sound. They came up with the 80 decibel levels, which is something that is being emitted from the car wash right at the end of its property line. And they also came up with the fact, as you can see by the top cover here, the email on June 23rd, they came up with not only the property line 80 decibels, but they also came up with something called the ambient level, which is a combination of the surrounding din and the traffic noise. However, it was taken at 4:30 p.m. And I got to tell you, being near that intersection for 35 years, at 4:30 p.m., Silver Lake Road and Route 14 are pretty darn busy. I wish that they had taken the dB levels Sunday morning at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when we head out to church, because there's no traffic. All that's out there is the 80 decibels of noise coming from the car wash. And by the way, that starts at 6 in the morning and it ends at 10 o'clock at night, every single day. And it often on a good day, like you remember Halloween a couple weeks ago, it was a bad day for the kids. But the next day was beautiful. It was sunny, it was warm, and that car wash, I guarantee you, that had to be operated, they had to wash 80, 90 cars. It was continuous from 6:30 in the morning to almost 10 o'clock at night, because the last 2 days were rain. And I can see where the people would want to wash their cars. I washed my car in the driveway. But anyway, that's what we ran into. That's the situation that this 623 refers to, is that the ambient levels there and the decibel levels emanating from the car wash. You see the last paragraph too. Mr. Simmons did initiate something to the staff saying, requesting the property owner to install silencers to reduce the potential impacts. That was very encouraging. But also you see at the top paragraph, he did say that our code does not provide regulations for noise between commercial and residential properties in this situation. And that is the crux of our gray area here, quite frankly. We found, after that, he reported to you, the board. I know he did on August 22nd, as I recall, in the minutes of the meeting. I saw that he had reported this information to you, that again, there didn't seem to be any standard set in the zoning ordinance to really hang your hat on for enforcement, which frankly I agree with. I'm a little familiar with the zoning ordinance. I had forgotten most of it over 10 years being gone from the zoning board, but the staff provided me with a copy, and I researched the zoning ordinance, and as you can see on page 2, I did find something in the zoning ordinance, which is a noise standard. And that noise standard is 17.50.050. It's in the zoning ordinance. That the first page is the front page. The back side shows you exactly one of the issues that we presented to the zoning board on November the 12th. And this zoning, this noise standard does pertain to only industrial and manufacturing. And as Mr. Simmons had indicated, there's nothing directly about our specific situation, because the car wash is B2. and we're R zoned, of course. But there's nothing in the zoning ordinance that says a decibel level between B2 and R zone across the street. However, this is pretty pertinent in our opinion. It clearly says in item 2, the paragraph 2 that when it relates to M zoning, which is the highest form of business zoning there is, as you know, the maximum across the adjacent R zoning can only be 50 decibels. So in reading this, myself and a couple of my neighbors who have also been in the area some 35 years, they said, well, gee, it looks like there is a ceiling here for noise. Okay, so with that information, we decided to go to the zoning board for a hearing and present this evidence. Because again, between Mr. Simmons and the information that I was getting from the zoning board, we have a gray area there. We're not quite sure what to do. And he suggested, and I agree with him, that we go to the zoning hearing and present the evidence to them. Being somewhat familiar with that board, I felt a little comfortable in going before the zoning board itself with this information. Because I really think that this zoning standard here, even though it applies to the M district, I think it is pertinent. But that's my opinion, and that's my opinion of some of the neighbors. By the way, that third page is a copy of a petition that my neighbors did sign. All these things are all these addresses are directly in line with the noise. And one of them new here, Elizabeth number 5, had just moved into the area not long ago, into Alma Terrace, and she had some considerations about the noise before she even moved in. But that's another issue. Anyway, at the zoning hearing, we went there, and in general, I have to tell you, in my opinion, I think the zoning board agreed with me on a couple of good points. Number one, they said, yeah, Gary, it's loud. And yeah, it's right across the street. I can see where maybe the noise could be heard by all those people, including yourself, adjacent to the parking lot of the funeral home. But they also, in general agreement, said they think that this 50 decibel limit for manufacturing establishes some sort of ceiling. At least that's what I took from the zoning hearing. If that's a ceiling, if across the street is a factory, across the street from our zoning, if it's a factory, the board would only have allow 50 decibels. So now we have a B zoning, B2 zoning, which is less. How do we get along with 80 decibels? How do we approve that? And that brings me back to the zoning hearings. If that was a vacant lot, completely nothing, and it was a new business coming in, I'm sure between the staff, yourself, the board, and the zoning hearing, I'm sure there have been all kinds of questions saying, well, gee, you're not manufacturing, so, but if it was, it would be 50, but you're going to be B2 and you're going to have a car wash and you're going to be emitting some noise. How much is that noise going to be? And I think in that formation period before anything was built, I think if it was 80 decibels, I think that would have caused a problem. And I think, obviously, the answer would have been some sort of variance. I know you know what variances are, Mr. Mayor, and we've talked about that. By the way, I've talked to the mayor about this. He's also been very helpful and very courteous to me. And you have, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. So that's our situation. Just in closing, the zoning board did ask Mr. Simmons for clarification to the village attorney, which I thought was a great idea. There is a gray area. It doesn't say anything about B2 across the street from our zoning. It doesn't in the zoning. But this does say something about a maximum for even the higher business zoning of M, at least in our opinion. So yesterday, I talked to Brian, and he called me at home and said that the village attorney's opinion is similar to exactly what he has informed the board on August 22nd, that there is nothing really specific pertaining to this issue that's in the zoning ordinance that they can really hang their hat on for enforcement purposes of any sort.
All right, Mr. Maverdong, let me interrupt you
Sure.
for a moment. I would like to have Brian Simmons come up and kind of address some of the concerns that you've.
Oh, that's fine. I'm almost done, Mr. Mayor, anyway. Go right ahead.
I thought you had wrapped up.
Oh, no, I am.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr. Dung mentioned, they did come before the zoning board last month to discuss the issue at the property as far as noise that is being generated by the facility. It was a general discussion before the board as far as the issue at hand, pretty much essentially what Mr. Dung has spoken this evening to. And the zoning board to direct staff to look into the matter further, review it with our village attorney, and look at if potential modifications of the code are required, possibly looking at a future text amendment to the ordinance for noise regulations, if that is the path that the board would want to take in this case. This slide does show the readings that we took in June at the property as far as the noise or sound readings that were taken from the property. In the side across from the property line and also directly outside of the car wash facility. As we mentioned earlier this summer, the board had directed staff to not require additional modifications from the business for the modifications for the car wash facility. Looking at our code requirements on this slide, and I believe Mr. Verdun gave you the copies in the handouts, there is a section in the zoning code that does have regulations for noise, which are geared towards industrial type uses. So the two paragraphs you see here are specifically looking at uses within the land use table, which is in the lower right-hand portion of the slide, which are only within the manufacturing district. So our noise ordinances don't speak towards a B2 business or B2 zoning district. It speaks towards uses that are located within a manufacturing district. And so while there are regulations within it for industrial standards, there's no application in this case that directly applies to a B2 zone to a residential zone. So that was the basis of our review of it. Had discussions with Mr. Simon on the review, and he concurred with that assessment as well.
Did you want to clarify that?
Everything that's been said, I agree with. The rules only directly apply to manufacturing and industrial uses, as described in the slide in the right-hand table. So there are two sets of rules that apply to industrial uses. There's one that says no industrial use may create annoying or disruptive noises that affect uses on adjacent lots. That's just a generic rule. And then there are specific noise limitations if the industrial or manufacturing use is adjacent to a different type of use, whether it be residential or business. But once more, those rules don't directly apply because this is not an industrial or manufacturing use. So there's nothing in the code to enforce.
Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the original board's decision, is that there's nothing that we have that is enforceable at this point, at this particular time. And I don't think that the board changed their tune on this at all?
I can tell you now that I see the limit for the M, for the manufacturing, it makes absolute sense that that should be the limit. And I'm going to recommend that we absolutely update our code to include that noise boundary level of 50 decibels. If it's good enough for manufacturing, it's absolutely got to be good enough for residential. We can't let it linger now that we know that it's there. One other point was, I did run a car wash years ago, right out of high school. And so when I heard about the situation, I'm at that gas station every day, and I went online and researched and came up with an idea, because the owner was approached. I know Jim had multiple contact with him, and there were some silencers and some things that were going to cost him, a couple of $1,000s, and he didn't want to talk about it. I went online and I found some of the sound deadening panels. I came up with a design. It would have cost about $260, and I left several messages, and I was finally told by his nephew that he didn't want to talk to us. He didn't want to do anything. And I felt that was not only disrespectful to me, which that's fine, but disrespectful to the residents that live adjacent to the business. So I want us to go in a minute. Obviously, we can't do anything about something that's backwards. But I think maybe this meeting here today and the meeting, the fact that he had the zoning meeting, may give us more impetus to go back to the owner and try and get him to take a reasonable approach about trying to do something. Something that won't harm his business, won't affect the number of cars that go through. And that was the design that we came up with. So I know there's things out there, and thank you, Gary, for coming up, and you did everything right.
I think I would agree with Trustee Chapman. But again, it wouldn't address the issue that we have at hand here in terms of rectifying that situation. But I think I would like to move forward if there's other support on the board in terms of rectifying this.
Well, I also have a question. So we have the funds that we give businesses to make modifications and improvements. Isn't that something for the $260 that Trustee Chapman's talking about, that maybe we can recommend that we have this program where he can look into it then, where that might be something we can consider as a board as well?
What I would say is we had some preliminary discussion about this back a number of months ago when this first came up. And at least at that point, any kind of corrective incentive was not at that time viewed to be a decision the board wanted to make at that time. However, you can revisit that. I wouldn't want to pin it down to a design that necessarily the trustee came up with, no disrespect to the design, but I don't know that the business owner will agree with that design. And there may be some other approach that has X dollar, attached to it that, could be an option. But I know that we had some elected officials that didn't feel that that was appropriate. So yes, there is some allocated dollars. This is somewhat of a situation, doesn't happen often. We're trying to be respectful to the neighbors and the business. So I personally don't see a problem. We purposely kept some of our business incentive money somewhat flexible within some certain parameters of this board to decide. So again, I would bring that forward and say you can discuss it. Obviously, we've got Attorney Simon here as well. I think we've identified the problem. It's just how do you solve it for the immediate case?
The one other thing I'll note is if the board directs staff to prepare a text amendment and bring it through the process, I wouldn't necessarily expect the decibel levels described in the current ordinance to remain the same. Based on the ambient reading that was actually taken of 58 decibels, the 50 decibel limit is unenforceable because it's indistinguishable from the ambient noise.
Right.
So we have to create a rule that is measurable by comparison to what the noise in the regular neighborhood is. So there are rules that apply, but if we go back and review them, you might not get the exact same thing you see now.
So taking it at the time at 4:30, that may be the right limit to set.
There's some study that would need to be done.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions on that? Well, I think that we'll continue to work on this. I think we'd like to see if we can work with the business owner again, try to reach out from our level here and see if there's something that we might be able to rectify. And then we can continue the discussion about amending our codes.
Well, I would like to add that the idea that came up tonight again off the board floor with respect to the incentive, I mean, we should revisit that right now and up or down that because it changes the dialogue with the business owner. I don't anticipate the business owner moving on the issue from the dialogue that I've had with various elected officials, et cetera. I just don't. And so if an incentive approach is something we need to study from legal or just have some general understanding that might be something we'd consider, that's a big part of any level of discussion to resolve this. I think that we've made the decision now to make an amendment to the code and follow that process, but we still have the case in front of us.
Well, with regards to the grant program that we have right now, how it's existing is that it has to do with facades and exterior. That's something that we can regulate and enforce. We've, in the past, have turned down grant requests for various parts of equipment of restaurants or a hood or something like that because it wasn't pertaining to the exterior of the facility, such as a parking lot, windows, facade improvements, and that before. So we have set a precedence in the past by denying internal equipment use, unless there's a way that we can make some sort of an amendment to a safety well-being type of an application.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking more is, I don't think this is that sort of thing where it's inside a structure, but when you're talking about how it affects the community overall, I do think there can be a caveat in that.
And there is, the other caveat is that, this is a sales tax generating business, separate from just being a good business. And, I mean, that's important to protect. And, those businesses need to be good stewards and good neighbors too. We're kind of at an impasse, but I mean, certainly there's a good amount of sales tax being generated by that business.
I would definitely support looking into, seeing if we can do an amendment to the grant program to somehow include with the idea that, again, we don't want to open it up and say it's for anything, but if we can do something that says it's impacting the neighborhood and some way to work it in that way, I think that would be a win-win for everybody.
See some nods?
Yes.
I'm not really sold on moving in that direction at this point.
Well, what if we discuss this at a committee meeting coming up in the future, so we can have a better dialogue and we can be a little bit more prepared, get some more staff input, more.
And can I just ask one more quick question? Even if we were to amend the zoning ordinance, at that point, are they already grandfathered in anyhow?
They'd be a non-conforming use.
Correct. So they'd be lawfully existing at the time that
Right.
that ordinance has changed.
Right, so the change in the ordinance wouldn't even matter.
Yep,
Not
this
on this
particular-
this
correct. It would apply to
circumstance.
any future
Right.
Right.
issues from that
So
standpoint.
it wouldn't address the issue at hand.
I'm not familiar enough yet with the amortization rules for nonconformities. Are there any that apply to business uses?
No, not with our code, there's no amortization. I mean, if an ordinance were to be approved, I believe you can put in a provision that would have a 5-year sunset clause that any existing uses could have, a certain time period to comply.
Up to code.
But our existing non-conforming, there's, if it's legally existing at the time that the code has changed, there's nothing that says within a certain time period that use is no longer allowed.
Is there any other potential site upgrades that the business owner has talked to us about that would be separate from this, that would be appearance improvements that might be a different way at this?
When we met with them on the property a few months ago, they looked at, from where the proximity of the drive-through exit is to Silver Lake Road, there's not much room as far as what you can do, modifications to the building or possible landscaping. They had explored an option to potentially expand the facility previously, but that the property owner is not looking at going that route at this point. So any modifications would be minor in nature right at the entrance, exit of the.
My point is that if there was a site improvement that would comply, there might be a different way at the
Sure.
immediate
We
issue.
could allocate, Good idea. Is there any further discussion with that, or is that put on hold indefinitely
For
BP?
what?
Do you have site improvements?
Yeah, he wasn't looking to pursue the project that he had originally envisioned for that.
Okay.
I think if I recall too, I don't think he was that opposed. I mean, of course, he didn't want to take it upon himself to make the changes that would
Right, remedy.
remedy the situation, but I don't think he was opposed to it if that was something we said he should do.
Correct. No, the discussions we had as far as like the silencer equipment, was something that the manufacturer of the equipment produced. It had a very limited decrease in the decibel level that, the equipment actually produces there. So it only, based off the manufacturer specifications, I believe it decreased by, 3 or 4 decibels, what the sound is that's being emitted from the device. And, the owner explored it, looked to see what that cost would be for that. And when he got the cost back, it didn't seem like as more bang for his buck from the standpoint as, it really addressing the issue.
Yeah, and I would suggest in future discussions, I mean, just the nature of this request, the neighbors came at multiple elected officials in multiple directions. It's just what happened here. And I think part of it, I think the business owner got weary of the different requests back to him, and ideas and things like that. I think we should channel things through Brian if we're going to have further discussion, just so that we stay on the same page and we're communicating a singular message.
Okay. Well, we'll move forward with this and put it on a future committee. of the
Okay,
whole
thank
meeting.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Verdongs, for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would make a issue-oriented comment not otherwise on the agenda? Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the open forum. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, corrections, edits? Move that to the consent agenda. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2015 Village Board meeting.
I have an addition, Mayor.
Yes.
Under items for separate action, item number 3, I would, page 3 of 7. I would like it stated that, that I don't agree with the process as far as the topic not going back to the ZPA before it came before the board. I think I made that pretty clear, and it's not stated.
I recall that. You could go make that amendment. So we can make that as amended.
Yes.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2015 Village Board meeting as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Cosler,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. Now moving to the mayor's report, I have a few things to go over on our report. We're going to start with McHenry County Council of Governments. The Village of Cary was fortunate enough to be able to host our last monthly meeting for MCCOG. We hosted it at Galati's. They did a phenomenal job. Those that were able to attend, I appreciate it. I think that they really stepped it up. It looked like it was very well attended. It was well attended, very well received. It gave several of the participants an opportunity to see what the venue was like and had many positive comments on that. But the business at hand that was very important to this meeting was talking about municipal partnering initiative, which is various municipalities coming together and bidding on certain product services like concrete, tree removal, seal cracks, pavement cracks, and that. So it gives municipalities a opportunity to really try to save some money for the taxpayers. And Administrator Clark has been very well versed in this. He brought this to the Village of Cary, and it was one of his suggestions that we had talked about it. So he has actually received some correspondence from one of the participants of the meeting that wants more information to participate more on more of a serious level attending the next meeting, which is a great opportunity because we do look at things in, savings are in greater scale. So, economies of scale. So we're excited about this opportunity, and we hope that it will work well in McHenry County, because right now we don't participate on that as a county, but individual municipalities do. And I thank Chris Clark for bringing that to our attention, because the village has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on various projects that we've had through that. So thank you for that. We'll go on. Second, I'll make just a recognition of our Cary Grove High School, our volleyball and football team. Volleyball made it to state, didn't quite succeed where they are, but I have to give them a shout out for their outstanding capabilities, and looking forward to next year, as well as our football team, which did well. They made it to the semifinals, and they actually played in half a foot of snow. So go Trojans. We love our high school and the athletes that participate in that. Which brings me to our next topic, is recognizing the Cary Grove High School local government class. We had a wonderful opportunity today to host some of the students from Cary Grove High School in a government day. And it was very well received by staff, as well as the participants and staff of Cary Grove High School. It was brought to us by Trustee Chapman and Mr. Ball. I think he was here.
He's there.
He's here from the Lions Club that was, he spearheaded this, and Dave, and they brought it to me earlier this year and asked if this is something that the board could probably get behind, and it was very well received. Chris Clark put together a great program with his department heads and staff, kind of illuminating what goes on here on a daily basis. And at the closing remarks that I had with the students over at the fire district, I think a lot of them were just genuinely overwhelmed at the amount of work that gets produced in the village, that they just take things for granted, that things happen. But there is a lot that goes on into the mechanics of this, the village. So what I'd like to do is call up each individual that was here and kind of introduce yourself, what role you played, and kind of give us an idea of what you thought about the day. We'll start over here. Come on up to the podium, please.
Come on now.
She's got her tag.
You got your tag on there. Well, good. That's good. We've got, yeah, just move the microphone down a little bit so we can hear you. Just state your name and kind of tell us what role you played.
I'm Rachel Stanley. I played as a trustee today. And what I really liked about today was that I didn't know how much, like, Carrie is so involved with other places, and I got involved because I really wanted to know more about like what Carrie does, and I really liked it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for participating.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll go next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Melissa Gorgoni, and I was a trustee, and I think I was just kind of surprised that every aspect of it interested me, like from public works to the fire department to being here and talking about all, like, even like the budgeting and stuff, just like how much time and thought goes into everything. I thought it was really cool to learn about because I didn't know about any of that before. And yeah.
Thank you.
Great, well, thank you.
The chief.
It's the
You got a badge?
No, they didn't give me
sneaking
one.
badge?
no gun, no badge.
I'm Nate Jacobs. I was police chief, and I thought it was pretty cool because I think I might want to be a cop. I'm not sure, and so it's pretty cool to see like the inside of like what goes on in Cary Police, and so it was pretty cool.
Well, good, thank you for participating.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Sure. Aaron?
I'm Erin O'Malley, and I also was one of the honorary village trustees. And for me, I just thought it was really interesting because I'm a senior in high school this year, and just through 4 years of school, not once have we ever talked about anything that goes on as far as here in the village or just the fire department or the police or anything. So for me, it was pretty much the entire day was like a whole learning experience. I've never heard of any of this stuff before, and I just thought it was a really good opportunity for me and everyone else, and I really hope that you continue to do this in the future, because for me, it was really interesting, and I plan on keeping up with the things that I learned today, so.
Well, great, well, thank you for
Thank you very
participating.
much.
Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Heidenreich, and today I really didn't have any idea what all of you did. And my mom lives right by the public works, and so I can see it out my window, but I had no idea what it did. Like, I knew it dealt with the water, but like to be able to go through and like actually see what all these people do, and then just all of the staff that kind of made this program happen, they were all really nice to us, and they were really like supportive of what we were doing and getting involved. And so I'm just really thankful for that, because it was a really, really nice experience.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Thank
I think last but not least, we're short a few people tonight. They had other obligations.
My name is Kayla Mann, and I was an honorary trustee. And I just thought it was really interesting because, like, no one ever talks about what the local government does. Everyone's so concerned with, the president and all that kind of stuff. No one really talks about, trustees or clerks or even the mayors, And so it was just interesting to be able to go through, like, all the different buildings and see what everyone did as, like, an actual, either like a part-time job or an actual job. Even just doing it for part of the time is just really interesting. So it was nice to see what everyone does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Norm, did you want to, some closing comments? Come on.
I'd just like to thank
Come on up to the
Oh,
mic.
no, the microphone.
We're not letting you off
You know the
the
drill.
the students are the important people.
Yeah.
With the help of Dave, I originally talked to the mayor, and he was enthusiastic about this thing. And I want to thank the entire village staff putting on a great program today. I think the kids really learned a lot. So, thank you.
Thank you, Norm.
I want to thank Dave and the Algonquin Township for loaning us the use of the bus. Dean Kelly from Cary Grove High School, he stayed with the students the whole day. And so it was great, and look forward to next year.
And just one final note is they actually had a legit election. They had to put together little videos, and they were voted on, and they had a successful election. So that was very exciting for them to see. And it was really, they sent me a link to all the different ones that was out. I'll forward that on to everybody. It was very, very interesting. You guys really took it very seriously, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to understand what goes on in the village of Cary. You know, it's just, you know, our community is a wonderful place to live. You know, not only is it the village, we've got the park district and the library district, and, you know, we have the fire district that all feeds into these things, not to mention the school district. So there is so much that is involved in our day-to-day operations to make, you know, you comfortable at home, your toilets flush, and your streets are safe, and they're plowed and that. So we've got the wherewithal to make sure that that still continues to happen. So thank you for participating, and we look forward to what happens next year. So thank you. And the last, I almost flipped right over here. The last item on my report is a discussion regarding Liberty Outdoor Advertising Billboard Agreement. A little bit of history about that is over the past 10 years, through various boards and mayors, the village came to an agreement with Liberty Outdoor Advertising to phase out their billboards throughout the community. And over the past 10 years, they've phased out all except for 4 faces. Which the one face, there's 2 faces on at Lake Julian, and then there's 2 faces up at the Metro Tracks. With regards to the sunset clause that was due to expire last June, and the business owner came to us and asked if they could have an extension to try to reevaluate some things and come to an agreement with the village of Cary. With that, the village had some discussion. It was a previous board that had the discussion as to what their anticipation was for this. We had asked for some improvements of the signs, making them look more like they're conforming to the sign ordinance that we have. We have a pretty rigid sign ordinance here, making them look more like monument signs, dressing them up a little bit to make them more aesthetically pleasing to the entrances and exits to the village of Cary. And with that, they came back with some recommendations with that last summer, I believe it was. And with that, they threw us a curveball, and they brought some new technology to the village. And what they were offering was to replace all 4 signs that are still left in the village with a new electronic sign, a digital sign over by where Lake Julian is. And with a potential approval of that, they would agree to remove the additional signage up at the railroad tracks, which is up at the top of the tracks and the retaining wall. So with that, Liberty Advertising had put together an opportunity for the village board to make a field trip to their corporate headquarters in Crystal Lake. And they had some signage brought in for the village board to evaluate. They brought in a couple of variations of the signs, and they proposed the one that was a little bit nicer, that I might have Jack, or I see Mr. Jaber snuck in here too, that kind of give a little bit of a better understanding of how the lighting works, and, you know, the millimeters and that stuff that you guys had talked about, and to kind of have an understanding of what this process is and what, in fact, that they are actually asking for, and to see if there is some other discussion by the village board. Since we're kind of doing it under my report, because we don't have a committee of the whole meeting right now, and this is a non-actionable item tonight, so we're going to kind of open it up to have an opportunity for the board to ask you some questions. So Jack and Brian, if you wanted to come up, and I think I kind of gave a decent overview of what the situation is right now. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Jack Schaefer, 616 Spring Beach Way, Cary.
And Brian Jaber, 23 Jefferson, Cary.
Did you want to kind of talk about what
Well, the one thing I will say that the couple of the board members here actually gave us the idea about going to digital. It is clearly, the future. You see them in front of churches, city halls. They're, and the technology that we showed you was educational for us too. But the style we want to do is the highest quality available.
Highest resolution.
Today. Now, 6 months from now, who knows? And of a higher quality than any digital around here now.
Correct.
Frankly, it would give us the flexibility to serve our Cary customers and to continue to serve the not-for-profits, the chamber, the other groups that we have traditionally served here. At one point, we had 14 faces in the town, and this would give us the flexibility to do some really nice things for Cary business and for Cary not-for-profits. It would, however, cost an arm and a leg, which, we have built into the formula.
To Jack's point, we can currently service 4 clients, one on each of those boards per month, where a digital would allow us approximately, give or take, what the village deems as the amount of time between rotations and things, roughly 6 per side, so a total of 12 businesses. So it's less intrusive to the business community, as well as the public and the residents and things like that, because there's less signs, but it also allows us to serve more of them. So it's kind of a win-win from a square footage and how many businesses we can serve standpoint.
It also allows us to serve them much better. I mean, we can, for instance, we can do the Mary Cary parade, and rain gets rained out, we can announce it, heaven forbid, because I'm going to be in it. But it's, I think it would be a plus for everybody all the way around. The simple fact is that many of the small businesses in Cary need exposure. They can't all be on Route 14. And if you studied the customers we've had, many of our Cary businesses are in the industrial park, Spring Street, and everybody can't be on Route 14. The other thing about that site is there is no residential housing around it. Nobody can look out their bedroom window and see the sign. The only impact would be on trout. And that's if they get the pond filled up again.
That's based on current development, right? I mean, because the site across the street is empty.
Oh, yeah. The last time I talked to the village on that subject, I had the impression you were looking at commercial property there.
Yeah, certainly the current case, don't know what's going to happen down the road when it redevelops.
Well, somebody thought they were going to have a big shopping center there. Might happen.
An interesting point to Jack's point earlier is that, trying to figure out the best way to do this. So you've got a big business like Lou Malnati's that came in, and you've got a local business, Romanesco's. You guys are familiar with? They're on First Street, I believe that is. And he's wanted to do billboards forever with us. And we just haven't been able to make it work because the locations that he needs are unfortunately tied up by Dr. Malooly, Beth Repta, and the Chamber at Thornton's. So he wants both those sites, and we just can't do it. So he's concerned that he's not going to be able to compete with a rather large franchise being Lou Malnati's because of the deep marketing dollars that they have to go on
Clear Channel boards and Lamar boards and do all kinds of expensive advertising. But something like, being on one spot on a digital rotation on one board and carry would allow him to compete with a much larger business, which, don't get me wrong, they're both important to carry.
Good
but-
pizza, too.
Yeah, but Roman, is kind of invested here in the community as someone who has been here for a long time, his family, his business, his children, his wife, et cetera. So I think that's a perfect example of why having a smaller local board, which is affordable to local businesses, is important to the local businesses more than it is to the big guys who have the deep pockets to spend money on all kinds of other means.
Anybody have any questions?
I think that you also mentioned that the cost would still be basically the same for the advertisers.
Correct.
That was one of the questions that came up with, this is a
Correct.
lot more expensive of a venue of advertising, and wanting to make sure that the people that are currently advertising would still be able to
That's right.
stay with.
So basically, current pricing on billboards, assuming you're going month to month, no contract, everything is $295 per month. We basically said that anyone that is a current client, we will extend that existing $300 to those people. And maximum price, and the only way you could even pay that price would be something I'll talk about in a second, would be $500. And that's if you're demanding specific times to be on, kind of like radio advertising, you just want prime time. You don't want to be on it the rest of the time, then it would go up because now I'm losing spots for other clients. But again, maximum's 500, so that keeps things very consistent to what they currently are.
And we would not make as many enemies by having to turn them down on those key locations, which is a problem.
Out of curiosity, how many trustees came and saw? I mean, I know I went, I don't know who all went, I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Tossler came, you came, the mayor came, trustee Chapman came, and Covelli, I can't remember whether you.
I did not have a chance to go, but I am a proponent of the electronic sign. So
Thank you.
I'm very excited for it.
Okay, I just didn't know.
I was just wondering, are there any objections? I haven't heard any objections yet to this idea.
Or maybe anything we can do to help overcome any objections.
I would just speak, not because I've been asked to, but I mean, you'll get an objection from trustee Dudek, who's not here tonight. That's it.
That too, and I'm on the fence post about it, and I think I've mentioned that before.
Yes.
I have been very clear about that from the get-go. I was able to, fortunately, get trustee Dudek to extend the agreement for the billboards in town to kind of limit to what we have right now. And like I had mentioned before in my opening remarks regarding this about the curveball, it was something that we had not anticipated, or I had not anticipated. I look at some of the other communities that I drive through on a daily basis, and I don't see them. I don't see them around at all in some of the larger, I'm all over the northwest community, or
Right.
northwest suburbs. I mean, I go down as far as Bolingbrook and way up here and out to the lake and wherever, Naperville, but I don't see them anywhere. And I pay attention to this kind of stuff. And I do see a lot of this type of billboards on the major expressways. I was stuck in a 2-hour traffic jam and watched probably the same thing come up like 30 times on Route
That was a
53
bad
last
jam.
week. It was terrible. The road was closed. Couldn't do anything but look at the advertising. So I guess that's your perfect situation there.
Well-
But I couldn't tell you who was on there. But I was just aggravated. But anyway, I digress. But I just wanted to make sure that, this is something that it would change the way the community is. We've been very adamant about the direction we were taking with our signage ordinance. But, that was then, this is now kind of a thing. And I was a proponent of keeping the billboards in town, only because I'm associated with a lot of the businesses. I function with the Chamber of Commerce. I talk to the businesses in our town, and this is a branch that they like to use in their advertising. So I'm a proponent of that. I really have some concerns about the aesthetic appeal of the sign, where it is, the brightness. I know that you've said that there's a neighboring one that's not a billboard, but it's a regular sign
Right.
that is completely different than what you have, and I find that sign to be kind of obnoxious. It's hard to even look at, and it's bright,
can
and
understand
And, and I would want to make sure that, this is just my opinion, just moving forward, if something like this were to come to that it would be in the best interest of the village. As it stands right now, I am an opponent or a proponent of maintaining the signage the way we originally discussed, with the addition of making them look like more of a monument type sign, cleaning them up. And that was one of the things that Trustee Dudek had questioned about, that he had not seen any type of improvements, not even anything in the interim, just to kind of clean up some of the misshapen boards and the cutoff boards, and, didn't understand why that couldn't be done. It didn't seem to be that, just to show a good faith effort in that. But that's my opinion on it, and I don't know what the rest of the board. Jeff, did you have a comment on this?
I was just opposed to changing the agreement in the first place that Mayor Lamal had worked out between Jack and the village. So.
All right, we finished up over there. Dave, did you have any
I
comments?
can't wait to see these electronic billboards. Folks, these are the highest class electronics, and I mean, I know electronics, these were great. I see these billboards popping up all over the place. Last night I saw one at Route 31 and where the hospital is in McHenry. It's about 2 grades less than the one that we had. And my dad was like, oh yeah, I like that. And I said, well, you know what, the ones we're looking at in Cary are even better.
What size were those?
That's a 300 square footer. We're
Yeah.
talking about 72.
And 20 millimeter. So that's the one we
That's
didn't
the
like.
one, because the one that if I was
The grainy
to,
one.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Oh, yeah.
part of our thought is that if you've got a high-quality sign and it's reasonably close to the road, you don't have to have 300 square feet.
Right.
There are nobody even talking about putting up a digital that small anywhere.
Nope.
We're plowing new ground.
Yeah. One other point, Mayor, that obviously when Trustee Dudek's here, we should take up with him, but we have not made any changes to the boards because maybe we are misunderstanding, but we thought that the purpose of the extension was to actually talk about what changes would take place on those boards, because, frankly, if we're going to take them down, then what purpose is there
You're right.
to do that? So, I mean, if we were wrong, we can definitely tomorrow get the guys out and start doing this, but, I want to show good faith, but maybe we misunderstood.
And
I'm
if-
just passing along a comment.
yeah, if the digital were to be approved, Lake Julian, the old structure would completely be gone. We'd have to bring in a whole new structure.
Round up.
Ground up.
Well,
Is
I have
the
a question.
property owner aware of that? and
Yes.
Agreeing to that?
I have a
Answer
question.
that question.
I have a question for Adam. So if this goes forward, would this be a new resolution or would it be a amendment to this extension?
They would need zoning approval for the signs. So there would have to be an amendment to the sign code to allow LED signs. I guess they're LED. And,
Yeah.
and they would look for approval.
And at that time, we would set the limit as far as the number of signs that are allowed in the village? That was one of the concerns too.
But that's one of the things I wanted to address, from the board's perspective. You open one door, we've got to make some accommodations.
Sure.
And, we've got to make sure that we're definitive when it comes to these type of signage in the village. We went through years where we were looking at reducing them. Now we're looking at changing the way we look at these things. So the way I'm looking at it now, if this gets approved, you have as many opportunities to advertise on these 2 signs that are back to back that you did when you had 14 signs in the village.
Right.
So your biggest bang for your buck is at that one for the
Right.
advertisers is for
Right.
that one because of the repetition, and that's the best place. That's the sign everybody wants to have.
It's somewhat tongue in cheek. Anybody who's willing to give up 16 faces can have a digital might be a way to prevent proliferation of more digitals, since that's essentially what we've done.
But that's just a concern of mine. I know that I've been approached by other businesses in town wanting to do something the same, but that's a different classification. The signs that we approve on the monument signs outside of businesses are different than this type. This is a separate issue. So I would want to just make sure that we were neat and tidy when it comes to if it looks like it's going down that path, which is, that's the direction of the board. But I wanted to make sure that that was something that was addressed fairly.
Last thing, Mayor, before I forget to address your question, which was the brightness thing. I think an easy way for us to eliminate the problems with both, if I'm frank, the on-premise signs, which we've referenced in this meeting, as well as the potential off-premise signs, is the way that the county has done it, which is ambient light at whatever time of day it is, plus, whatever, whether you want to go nits or a percentage above it or whatever. And frankly, that, it's enforced.
This sign would also require a state permit, and the state has those type of requirements, which are pretty much universal. And by the way, they have the equipment and the people, well, pardon me, I don't know if anybody's working at the state now, but technically they have the personnel and the equipment to drive by and go, right.
Yeah.
All right, were there any other questions?
So the next process, if I can ask Director Simmons to come to the mic, we mentioned the zoning board. Just so the public understands, what's the next step for Liberty Signs?
For a sign, billboards require conditional use approval, and by the way our sign code is written, it's actually at the committee of the whole level. It does not require a zoning board review. So any modifications or proposal that they would have for the sign would be to comply with those sections of the ordinance and come before the committee of the whole for discussion. So if they're requesting a illuminated sign, would require a variance and then also conditional use for a billboard within the B2 district.
So you said a variance?
Yeah, it depends on what the sign is actually designed as far as size. The maximum size they can have is a 72 square foot sign. But for our code says that billboards cannot be illuminated. So if it's an illuminated sign, digital sign, that would require variance.
Okay, I just want the board to be clear. I mean, there's clearly two no votes on this heading in, and that's just what it is. But there's procedural requests they're going to have to make and go through the process.
Okay. I had a question about the signs themselves. Maybe I understand that the images rotate on a certain frequency. Do you anticipate each image being a still image, or do you anticipate each image being capable of animation?
No animation.
Yeah, while the board is capable of it, I believe state law actually prohibits that.
Yes,
No
it does on a roadway.
And frankly, that doesn't sound real safe, so. Yeah.
And I think you already addressed my question that it's capable of monitoring ambient light and adjusting itself.
Correct. It's got a lot of analytics built into it, which actually we are capable of giving you credentials to monitor, say, what the brightness is. So you could check in at any time and go, oh, well, okay,
Okay. We'll work with Brian on this and we'll get you going.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to remove item number 7 from we'll deal with that separately. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 7.
I wanted to remove,
1 through 6.
I want to remove, do I have to do that after we make the motion? I want to pull 5 and 6 off of here.
Well, why don't we pull 5, 6? We'll just do consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 through 4.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Thank you. And I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
I just wanted to get some clarification in terms of, in order for them to be able to build this garage, they're having to remove a deck. With that, having to remove the deck, I know with the project going on over there at Pearl Street and First Street, the administrator was able to grant them a 20% variance. They said removing the deck was like an 8% overage in terms of impervious coverage. Would this be a situation in which you'd be able to grant them a 20% variance so they wouldn't have to remove their deck?
The 20% would be if they used brick pavers or similar material on the property. Deck would not be an item that could be removed from a lot coverage.
Okay.
So if they were to replace the sidewalk that led to the building, or a patio area in the back of the building with brick pavers, they can get a 20% credit for those areas.
Okay. Is the owner here tonight?
Yes.
Oh, okay. How do you feel about that? Do you have a problem with having to remove your deck in that?
No.
No, okay. Then I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure everything was good.
Good question,
I'm
John.
in favor of approving this, so.
Okay. Any other questions on item 5? Roll call, please.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Osler,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item number 6.
So moved.
Second.
Jeffrey?
The only concern I had was that if we're going to grant the use for a church, I didn't see anything in the property, in the notes that we got. Do we lose this property in terms of tax revenue?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I think, did you do a, didn't we talk about that before about, it's?
I didn't.
No? We talked about it with somebody about what their tax bill was as it is right now, and it's, yeah, it's not that sizable. Any other questions on item 6? Roll call, please.
Kraus,
No.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Osler,
Yes.
Cavelli.
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
The chief has an amendment to this.
Oops, sir.
Oh,
Thanks. Oh, there's 2.
Thank you.
What you have before you is the amended intergovernmental agreement between the McHenry County Gang Task Force and the Village of Cary. Basically, what occurred is Julie Tappendorf, counsel for Ansel Blink, reviewed this agreement and had some concerns as it related to Section 15, which had to do with indemnification and punitive damages, basically. I was asked to review this with our insurance, our risk management service, and another municipality that's party to this agreement had similar concerns. So as you can see today, I think about 9 o'clock this morning, I received an amended agreement that struck a line or a portion of a line that addressed those punitive damages. So even without that amendment, I don't think that we would have been required to pay the punitive damages, because that's not good, that's not policy, public policy in the state of Illinois. But now that the agreement is amended only by striking, I think, 4 or 5 words, I think that satisfies everyone as it relates to the exposure that we would have entering into this agreement. And this is an ongoing agreement. We've been party to the gang task force for a long time, and we've sent our personnel to those callouts when requested. So I would entertain any motions you might have, any comments you might have in regards to this agreement. It's pretty routine as it relates to, it was just kind of a revision, and the revision was done by counsel for the sheriff's office.
Any questions for the chief?
No.
Roll call, please.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Osler,
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll move to a discussion regarding the annual real estate tax levy for the tax year of 2015. This is under items for separate action.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance consultant Ducharme and I will lead this item for discussion. The objective tonight is to zero in on a decision that you might be able to approve for consideration on December 15th, which by rule we need to do. Since the last board meeting, the day after the board meeting, we received the information from the county assessor that we were seeking. In your memorandum, it lays out 3 conceptual options, or a couple of conceptual options, I'll say, for what you might consider and what the caps are on those. Believe Michael can run through the mechanics of what was said from the county assessor from a CPI, Consumer Price Index, as well as new growth in the EAV. So Mike, do you want to walk them through what we learned from the assessor?
Sure. Since our last meeting, the county has provided us the final information. And based on the tax caps, we would be allowed to increase our levy by a total of $33,801. It's made up of 2 components. First being consumer price, the rise in the consumer price index, which was 0.8%, which generates $20,000 by itself. And then there's the new growth component for new development in the village in the last year, which would provide another $13,716. There are basically 3 options in front of the board. I guess we could come up with something in between there of leaving the village's tax levy where it is currently, allowing us to increase the tax levy for the increase in the CPI, or allowing us to increase the tax levy for the growth in the CPI plus the new growth or new development in the village. That's pretty much the issue that's in front of the board tonight. If we could reach some consensus on what that would be for our next board meeting or at our next village board meeting, we would bring the tax levy ordinance to you so it could be approved by the village board so we could have it filed by the last Tuesday at the latest in December. I'll be more than happy to answer any other questions you might have, but that's pretty much the crux of the situation.
Michael, could
Yes.
you explain to our residents at home and those here, what does it mean when it says we capture new growth?
New growth is new development that comes on the tax rolls for the first time in a community. Each and every year, there is a value that's determined for every piece of property, whether it be residential and commercial. And the value of that is considered the village's EAV, or equalized assessed valuation. Because we are the Village of Cary, we are a non-home rule community, we are subject to tax caps, which means we can only raise our tax levy by the lesser of 5% or the increase in the CPI. What new growth does for the village for a period of 1 year or the year in which it comes on the tax rolls, any increase we receive from new development does not count against that maximum tax levy in the very first year. And so the amount from that new development allows us to increase our tax levy more than we'd normally be able to. If we don't increase it in that first year when the development occurs, we've missed the opportunity and we forego that in the future.
Thank you, Michael. That was very, very succinct, and that's the point that I'll be supporting on our list, is with a 0 increase in the levy and capturing the new growth as we did last year.
Is that an assumption, though, that new growth will be coming? Or do we know that?
That has been determined by the county and was reported to us.
The new growth figure is as of January 1st, 2015.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And just to point out, Michael, you and I spoke about this earlier today. The new growth next year would then be put into our EAV for the next year.
Yes, it would.
Technically, by voting in an increase in the new growth, we're capturing $13,716 this year. But if we didn't, hypothetically, next year, those monies would be in our EAV and we would get them anyway. So we're basically just
delaying.
we're basically just voting on whether we get $13,000 this year.
Well, what you have said is accurate. I think what it allows us to do is compound that 13,000 in determining what our maximum extension will be going forward.
So as a result of state politics, there's a very real possibility that you will not be able to collect that $13,000 next year. There's a likelihood that the state will apply a freeze. And so the percentage change that you get as a result of the CPI will automatically be set at 0. So you'll get no increase, beyond what you levy this year.
Okay. I understand.
And then, Michael, in terms of the estimated EVA for this year, when do we get a concrete number in terms of what it actually is?
We actually received it, and that's what I reported to you in the memo in front of you. The village's overall EAV is $408,210,601.
Okay, but it says estimated.
Well,
But that is the actual number?
That is the actual.
Okay.
Yes, it is. We had assumed when we estimated at our last meeting that the EAV was going to go up 2%. In actuality, it went up 4%.
So I have a question. So as a Cary resident, business owner in Cary, how does this new growth levy, how does that affect them?
Well,
I'll take a intro to that, and then Michael can add in. The EAV is redistributed each year based on this calculation. So EAVs can change in neighborhood by other factors. Essentially, if it's 12 or 13,000 that the board decides to capture, that's spread out over that overall pie. From the standpoint of the village, and it's a minimal impact. I mean, you have 6,000 homes in the community. Talking about a $12,000, $13,000 increase. It's very minor. It's difficult to pin down, and I'm not a fan of some of the communities that make calculations where it's like $5 a home, based on a $250,000 tax bill. We've tested that before in past years, and it's erroneous. I don't believe in that approach. What I can tell you is that you have X number of homes, you have $12,000, $13,000 of new ask, and that's the math.
So, and this would affect new homeowners coming into Cary? New homes that are being...
Go ahead, Mike.
pretty much the increase that we're looking at. There will be a final tax rate, so it will affect all the property owners. However, when the EAV, or the equalized assessed valuation of the village, goes up, the village's tax rate goes down. So in some cases, and please, I can't tell you on a home-by-home basis, but even though our tax levy may be going up, because the village's tax rate went down, it may not cost a homeowner any more money than it did last year.
So if you look at the materials that were handed out, there's a page that says final tax computation report.
Page you on? Oh, I see it. I got it. I got it.
Fourth page.
I got it.
It says that the village's total rate was roughly 64 cents for every $100 of assessed valuation. If you don't add new growth, the new property owners won't be paying their 64 cents like everyone else is. Everyone else will end up paying less. Everyone else will end up paying 62 cents. And the new growth, the people who created new property and new value will end up paying less than the people who were here the preceding year.
Does that answer your question? No?
No.
What kind of further clarification would you like?
Look, I'll be honest with you. When I built a home here, I had a tax shock like you would not believe. From what they told me our taxes would be to what I actually got. I'll be contesting them. But it was a sticker shock. And so that's why I'm having a hard time with any sort of tax levy right now, because I'm thinking there's other people in my same situation right now. And so that's why right now I was looking at a 0 increase.
Well, I will tell you that there are a number of different things that go into what your tax bill is. Obviously, there's a number of other taxing bodies besides the village, for one. And further, if the assessed value of your particular home goes up, which happens once every 4 years, that's going to impact how much you pay in taxes as well. And so if you were looking at the tax bill for a vacant lot, and then the next year you were looking at taxes on an improved lot with a finished home, the tax bill is going to raise significantly because whatever the rate is,
Sure.
if the rate goes up or down, it's going to be against the larger value. And then we also don't have any control here about what the other taxing bodies do in terms of tax increases.
Sure, I get that. I don't know. I guess I would like to see us look at reducing our spending versus adding on more taxes.
Yeah, I'm also confused what you said, Adam, that a new homeowner would pay less taxes if we don't, you need to explain that more to me. And maybe, Chris, could you maybe do that?
Well, let's start with Adam. It was his analogy.
So-
and I'll translate.
Assuming the CPI is 0. When last year, everyone in the village paid 64 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. And now there's 4% new growth that's never had to pay taxes on that value before. If you don't levy against the new growth, then everyone's going to end up paying less than 64 cents. And you'll never be able to get back up to 64 cents unless the CPI goes up an amount. You'll lose the ability to levy the same rate against all those new value, all that new value.
And what I tried to do earlier was, and I don't disagree with that assessment, because I talk to residents about this pretty much every year around this time when these issues come up. And I try to explain, the total tax amount that we tax for, roughly 2.5 million of about $8.4 million general fund. And the new growth piece is typically right around this number in Cary, at least in past years. And so I explain it to them, it's 12,000 increase on a $2.5 million bill. And there's so much, at least in past years, there's been a lot of volatility in the EAVs. I mean, as you've seen, this is the first year it's gone up that we've been tracking since 2008. So because of that volatility, it's very difficult for us as practitioners to, in advance of their tax bill coming out, being accurate. In fact, if we try, we're going to be wrong, and then folks get upset. So the easiest way for us to explain at staff level to constituents and residents is, yeah, we're asking for $12,000 more dollars, and that's because of new growth that's been traced by the county, within Cary. That's how I explain it. And so in essence, yeah, it's a tax increase. This year is different than, Trustee Kraus has been here in past years, the mayor, when we've had levy discussions, Trustee Chapman, Trustee Dudek's not with us. In the past years, the EAV has gone down. And so that has always been a discussion and debate by past boards about how can we be raising taxes dime one when the EAVs go down. And we talked about this at our last hearing, and it's gone up slightly, which is good news, but still, a slight amount, and we're still at 408 million, and in 8 it was 612 million. So, we're still, way down. So, my viewpoint is, and I'll say it here, I believe we've eliminated from my read of the trustees the concept of the full amount, the CPI plus new growth. So that's off the table. We're talking right now about two options. We're talking about 0, or we're talking about this new growth amount of about $13,000. So, and the fact of the matter is, as we laid out the last meeting, we have financial components that come in every year with the cost of commodities increasing, pension obligations like we have. I'm not lobbying for a tax increase. I'm explaining that those are fixed. The pension issue for police alone is 140,000 new money. Does 12,000 cover that? No. And do other cost cuts have to get looked at? Yes, they do every year. Because we've been eating increases that go well beyond what you've taxed as long as I've been here. We've been doing that through things like joint partnering, joint purchasing, looking at every position every time it comes up, removing positions at times, contracting out for services that give us scale and flexibility to go up and down. All of those cost containment elements will have to continue regardless of which decision you make on the 15th, because we're trying to balance against a couple $100,000 that isn't there in new revenue. So my point is, I don't know that from a philosophical standpoint, a $0 versus a $12,000 decision is that big of one to make in the grand scale of the budget. And I just wanted to put that out there. Make the decision that you think is right for the community based on these facts. I wouldn't make it too hard. And I also wouldn't say, and that's why I've been careful tonight to explain this to the residents, I don't agree also with some of the statements that you hear from other agencies that say, well, we're just levying the new growth and so it's a net zero. It's too difficult to explain that to a resident because of the EAV volatility. So pick one and let's move on to the next issue.
This is a non-actionable item this evening. It's for discussion. This is a great discussion to have. I would, in future years, while my first year as mayor, we had a similar conversation with the previous board, and there was some talk back and forth about things, and we ended up having to recall the previous vote because a trustee was concerned about what we're talking about right now. And I had encouraged this particular trustee to sit down and talk with staff about it and get the realistic, true understanding of this. It does take time. It seems so simple, but it's complicated. Or it's complicated, but it's actually simple. It's just a bizarre situation. But it's something that you need to have a real thorough understanding of before you cast a vote. And so I would encourage you to sit down and talk with Chris and make sure that the answers are that they're correct that you're wanting to hear, and so you can make an informed decision based on facts and what the future needs are of the village of Cary. I mean, we have a huge obligation that is going to continue to go year after year after year, and if we minimize the minimal additions that we were entitled to by the new growth, then that'll eventually catch up with us. And we are very good stewards of the tax dollars. We look at everything, every nickel we spend, we look at twice, 3 times as to if this is valuable to the village. We are very cognizant of our spending, and I'm very proud of that. This board is in fact part of that as well. So we have to make sure that everybody has a thorough understanding of what they're voting on. So I would encourage you, because we do need to have a decision by next week, by our next meeting on the 15th. We need to move these things forward. There is obligations that we have. So, statewide, countywide, statewide, that we have to make sure that we're in compliance with. So if anybody else has any other questions, direct them to Michael now. Otherwise, my advice would be to sit down and talk with Chris. He could probably drag Michael in his office and answer the questions that you may need.
And I appreciate that assessment, but I'd like to know, should I bring a 0 to the next meeting to vote on? Because I don't advise multiple pieces of legislation. It doesn't work. It's too confusing to the public. We need 4 votes, and we should make a decision. I've not tried to minimize the complexities, but I wanted to just put it in perspective. And I think we need to make a decision and move on.
I'm for 0.
Okay. Trustee McAlpine.
I'm for new growth.
Trustee Kerr.
I'm for 0.
New growth.
0.
Well, I know that Trustee Dudek texted me earlier with he's for the full vote, the new growth as well as the CPI. So
half one way, half the other, and one doesn't want either one.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But we need to talk to Trustee Dudek and get a concrete answer out of him.
Well, I think you have it. I think you have it. I mean.
Well, he'll vote, I don't know if he will vote yes for.
Last year, he voted no based on it not being the full increase.
Yeah.
Correct, right.
And he said he always will.
Yeah.
Do you agree with my assessment that it would be helpful to the public to know what we're voting on that night? I'm not a big fan on property taxes to bring multiple items and not have, some disclosure on it. I mean, in theory, it could be voted down, but it just makes it confusing to the residents. I mean, we're on TV, we're video, I mean, we have all that for us, but it'd be probably more sensible to have something that,
So I think we have 4 zeros. Trustee Costa is a 0.
I think.
3.
Well, Rick will vote no only because it's not what he wants.
Well, he might vote yes, because he'd take the lesser of the evil, I don't know.
He hasn't done that so far.
So you got 3 zeros and 2 0 plus growth.
Chris, what's your vote?
0.
Let's ask our other trustees.
I know, we've had.
I'm not on the board, but I just
Really?
feel as though the issue is complex, and I think, we need to be directed to remain lean. And, I mean, 12,000 is not going to, from the standpoint of the community's assessment that it's going to balance our budget, I mean, it's not. I mean, we have significant decisions to make at a service level basis, and I think it just blurs the reality of the state and its situation and its risk on, a couple, $500,000 of our revenue. And we're talking about 12,000, which is important, but I mean, if that happens, even half of what they're discussing, I mean, we have significant, issues, and I think that, I don't want to get into the policy, realm here at all, but I think we should make a decision, move on, and then spend the next 3-4 months putting this budget back together again like we did last year twice, and focus our time and efforts and, energies on that. So any issues with me bringing a 0 to the next meeting and then the votes are cast as yes?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward with the Cary Main Street Fest summary, I will ask Director Brad Ball.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Mr. Ball.
Pass on final drafts of the wrap-up report. The draft, I believe, made its way into your packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
It's already there.
That's one.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to be here tonight to provide a wrap-up report for the second annual Cary Main Street Fest, held September 19th and 20th. I haven't been here since you got the new sound system. I'm not used to hearing myself.
You're being videotaped, so
yes.
thanks to the family.
That's how I've been watching the board meetings. Thanks for doing that. My goals with the update tonight are to highlight some event successes and to help you understand the community's return on the village's sponsorship investment. I also brought along a slideshow because a picture, they say, is worth 1,000 words. In 2015, the Village of Cary supported the Cary Grove Area Chamber of Commerce's second annual fall event, Cary Main Street Fest, with $10,000. And then another $7,000 in services from the police and public works departments. It's a total of a $17,000 commitment, and in recognition of this support, the village's logo was included on posters, postcards, newspaper ads, billboards, banners, and our volunteer t-shirts. The financial and service contributions were critical to the event's success. The sponsorship helped to underwrite entertainment, family activities, event marketing, security, of course, and hundreds of hours of event management staff hours. A couple of highlights from the 2015 Cary Main Street Fest. We had 5,815 attendees. That's up 5% over 2014. We featured 25 Cary businesses and organizations as sponsors, vendors, advertisers, and entertainers, so really, really terrific participation from the local community here. We had over 200 volunteers that participated, including several of the trustees. Thank you all very much for your time and your participation. And our volunteer grant program raised $1,313 for Cary Grove Booster Club, Cary Grove Fine Arts Foundation, and Trojan Track and Cross Country Association. The board received final copies of the wrap-up report for me and draft copy in their meeting packets. And I'm happy to answer questions on any of the specifics that are outlined in that information. But before I wrap up, I would like to mention that in order to keep the momentum going for a third year, plans for 2016 have already begun. The Chamber is already working to hire an event consultant, book the best bands, and secure corporate sponsorship. Ongoing support from the Village of Cary is necessary to keep building Cary Main Street Fest into a destination event and regional attraction that highlights the Village of Cary as a great place to live, work, to play, and to visit. In the coming weeks, the Chamber will be reaching out to our volunteers, to participants, to business owners, and to residents to demonstrate the Village's support is not only a good community investment, but it's what your constituents want you to do. The Village Board needs to hear from the residents that the financial and service contribution has supported the taxpayers and the voters, and we intend to bring evidence of that to you. In closing, this year's event was a huge success. It would not have been possible without the financial and service contributions from the Village of Cary. And the Chamber looks forward to continuing to work together to make Cary Main Street Fest a successful event for many years to come. If I can make a couple quick introductions, I have a few directors from the Chamber's board here tonight. We have our board president, Dave Evans of Evans Carpet Cleaning Plus, also a Cary resident. Lisa Rout, Cary resident, she's a Mary Kay sales director. She's our officer at large. Dave Miller is one of our directors, like Julian. I think most of you know Dave. And Steve France with Sage Products. I would actually like to, if I can give the mic to Steve for just a second, he wanted to give a quick message on behalf of Sage.
Good evening. Hi. Just wanted to say thanks for the support in 2015, and as a someone who works in Cary, lives in Lake in the Hills, sorry, but it is still an attraction for my family. Got young kids, happy to come, and so appreciate your support, and think that the board probably has the same philosophy of Sage, which is strong Cary is strong for business and strong for residents, certainly for Sage. We believe in that philosophy that, well, we don't have any customers here in Cary. We've always supported the Chamber and appreciate the support and the philosophy that the board has for events like this as well. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Questions?
No, I just want to say thanks for coming in and giving us a breakdown of the finances of the fest. I had asked for that a couple months ago and was told that I wasn't going to get a breakdown of that, but I do appreciate it. So thanks for doing that for us.
Yep.
Great event.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Brad.
2016 is only 9 months away.
Can't wait.
Thanks.
Thank you. Now moving to a consideration for approval of Resolution R15-12-02, executing an engineering design services agreement for the Park Avenue roadway drainage improvement.
So moved.
Second.
Hi, Eric.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Village Board. Before you tonight is the results for the engineering agreement for Park Avenue. This project is in our current FY 15-16 budget and is for the roadway pavement improvements and drainage improvements for this particular neighborhood. Just to refresh your memory on the project, the slide before you has a map of the project area. Park Avenue is a local street parallel to Route 14 between Silver Lake Road and First Street. Half the project would be split into the portion of the work that would be reconstruction for full drainage improvements and road improvements, and then the east half would be for resurfacing. The Village Board has, in the past, had approved 2 on-call engineering firms that were selected based on a qualifications process. We had about 23 consultants that were reviewed in that scenario. And the 2 that were chosen for the on-call services were H.R. Green out of McHenry and Christopher Burke Engineering out of Rosemont. Both firms provided proposals for the project. The engineer's estimate, so our estimate for the services was approximately $50,000. The lower of the 2 proposals, both being qualified, is a little bit under 50 in total. The capital improvement fund from which this project it would be paid for, however, it does show, incorrectly showed $13,000 for this particular line item. However, the other projects that have come in have come in under the anticipated budget amounts, so there is adequate funding to cover this project. And if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Any questions? I think it's a great project. I really do. I think it's well needed. I travel on that road all the time, cutting through town to avoid a.
And I want to emphasize, this has been an initiative of Trustee Kraus to focus on this Park Avenue through the CIP discussions last spring. And we had initially explained that we had, this engineering work that had to be done before this road was moved up, so that we do it once, do it right, get out of the neighborhood. The other component that we'll talk about more at budget time was that I had explained that it might be a decent year to take a year off in the neighborhood resurfacing program for this year coming forward because of the goal to do a significant amount of work downtown. And as we know, and we're briefed on at the last village board meeting, we're probably going to need an extra 6 months on the Metro Station improvement project to be able to sink into the, and that'll be more of a set 2017 project. So I think this is going to need to be, after the engineering's done, looked at for funding for next year as a project in a vacuum for a good chunk of dollars that maybe we would have done in 17. Now, because the train station project moved, maybe we can move this to 16. And tomorrow, Mr. Morimoto and Mr. Reif will be at a meeting on Glenview for the Municipal Partnering Initiative, and we're going to start the McHenry County bidding group. And to add more to what the mayor said yesterday, we've now attracted the city of Crystal Lake to the group, and they'll be attending tomorrow with us down south. And I think that there, whether it be Crystal Lake, whether it be Algonquin, whether it be other suburbs that come to the table now, I think that there could be some resurfacing partnering with Cary, which would help you get better economy of scale for a small job on parking. That normally you'd wait, but in this scenario, it might be one where we try to use this as a joint bidding project. So I think it's good that this has come forward, and we appreciate your consideration of this.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Cosler?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Cavelli?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Moving to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple updates for the public and the board. I had communicated this to you last Friday, but we did get some good news effective today for reasons that tie back to a contract that we did as a village board back in November of 2012. We, at that time, rebid our garbage contract out to public advertisement for a new hauler, and the board went through a very complicated process, but ended up with what I believe was a significant improvement to the community by switching to advanced disposal for garbage hauling. We distributed containers to every resident in the community. We lopped off about 20% on our pricing for many residents. There were some other changes to service level for some that did not have a garbage bill at the time that now do have a small one for some level of service. We also were able to change the yard waste program to have there be no landscape stickers at all through that process. But one kind of hanging chad element in the negotiations was the year-to-year creep up increases, and we were able to tie a ceiling on the annual increases to the lower of the CPIW factor, or 2.5%. And interestingly, this is the August CPIW factor, and this year the factor was negative 0.45%. And so therefore, the residents have no increase in garbage rates or yard waste rates or recycling rates for the next 12 months. So that's good news. We're making tough decisions here tonight, as you can understand, with taxes and other things that we'll have to deal with through our budget, the uncertainties of the state. But I think with some creative negotiating, the village made a good decision at that time in this 7-year contract, and now we have 0% increase. So that's good news. The website project is nearing its conclusion. Not quite ready to give you a launch date yet in terms of when it will be live, but I've seen the pre-draft. There was another meeting of staff today. It is impressive. Significantly a huge upgrade, not just from a cosmetic standpoint of what it looks like and a usability, but the citizen request system component that we have to it is already being piloted and used. I think it's going to be a tremendous project for this year's budget. So I'm optimistic that at our next board meeting we'll have further updates, but I want to commend the staff team that everyone at this table has been on working behind the scenes with our Civic Plus provider. I think it'll be a nice start to the new year. We're certainly very close. And that's all I had tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Department head reports, anything for us, Chief?
Just a real quick, the department investigated a soliciting complaint that will be taking some action as it relates to enforcement on an organization that's been soliciting for energy, electric services within the village. So if you've received any complaints or comments in regards to that, we were made aware of it and took some enforcement action as it related to 2 solicitors for that company.
You know, Chief, I did have a question about that. Do you guys ever revoke permits?
I'm writing the letter now. But I don't revoke it on behalf of the organization. I only revoke it for the individuals that were issued those permits.
Okay.
And part of the reason that I can do that is because they violated the solicitor ordinance. But again, they get due process, so they're revoked only until they go to court. And then if they're convicted, then they can't get a permit.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Chief.
Eric, anything else?
I have one item for you. The demolition for the final home at Sunset and Crest, the contract was awarded by the board at a previous meeting. The contractor is going to be initiating the first steps, which is the cleanup of any trace asbestos materials. That'll go on probably next week. And then shortly after, they'll begin the demolition. They anticipate a very short turnaround time, and they also anticipate being finished on schedule, which is, I believe contract date is December 18th. So that work will be beginning in earnest, and you should see that third property brought to that interim restored state like the other 2.
At Sunset and Crest.
Correct. It's the 65 Sunset property.
Thank you.
That looks so different over there now. You drive down that street, it's like, wow, different town. Thanks, Eric. Jacob?
Thank you, Mayor. It was mentioned earlier tonight, but just want to give the board a reminder. Our Mary Carey Parade will be this weekend. On Sunday, it starts at 12 noon. The festivities kick off downtown. The actual parade will start at 1 o'clock, and it starts at Wolf and Main Street, and then traverses down Main Street into downtown. Early on in the parade, probably around 1:30, give or take, we'll have the lighting of the tree, and then folks will be able to go back then and view the parade. So the board members are invited as usual around 12:45 to participate in the parade. We'll have a village truck for the board members to ride in the back on. So hope to see you there.
Thanks, Jake. Brian, anything?
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any future agenda items in discussion by the village board? Okay.
Well, how about a trustee report for my committees?
Oh.
Don't we want to hear about that?
Well, we can hear about it now. Discussion.
Hey, all right. So let's talk about 2 of the 3 committees that I serve on outside of the board, and it's been very exciting. I couldn't attend the 7:30 stormwater meeting last month, but Eric was there, and as you know, we got approved to be a certified community so we can establish our own codes, and so that continues to be an exciting committee to be on. And there's some revisions that we're being asked to look at to the state program, and so that'll be coming up after the December holidays. The gravel pit committee met in October, and we talked about the Marengo pit. There wasn't anything specific about the Cary gravel pit, but I would like to find out if Myers would be willing to set up any more tours. There was a discussion about how successful that was here, and some of the other operators had said that they had never thought about inviting the residents nearby out to see their operation. And so we were glad to share that. The third committee that I serve on is the Suburban Caucus of Mayors, and on that committee, this is an environmental committee, and I am absolutely just stoked about the group of people, the mayors, the village managers, trustees that are serving on this committee from all over the north and all over the Chicago suburbs. The environmental programs that we're talking about has already opened up opportunities for grants. It's created ideas that we're going to bring forward here at our December 15th meeting as far as joining a greener environmental compact here in Illinois and helping to put Cary on a roadmap towards sustainability. We'll talk about renewable energy and talk about capturing dollars that are available out there for grants and things to help us to fund some of these changes. So there's some unfunded mandates, and we're looking at ways to fund those to help the village become economically sustainable for the future. So I'm very excited and grateful for the opportunity to serve and to bring back the ideas here to the board and then to showcase those out to our residents.
I had one thing that I'd like to get some information on. I noticed on the website that we were advertising for the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'd like to know what is the goal of that, and what is the purpose of why we're creating that? You know, I'd like to see that. What are people getting when they apply, in terms of why are we creating that? So I'd like to get some documentation in terms of what the objectives are and what the outcomes are that we're hoping to achieve with that committee.
Have you received any responses from that?
I have not. I can't honestly tell you that I focused on that this week with some of the other commitments that we had, but we put out notice that we'd like some community volunteers to come forward, and we'll certainly capture those submittals and continue to refine what I believe to be a good scope of work that we already have, and can be a part of your discussion about what the charge for this task force is, what the qualifications of volunteer residents are, and how it can help us to generate some additional momentum for our economic development work. So glad to bring that forward in more detail.
Where is it at on the website? I did send you one name of somebody who's interested.
Right, I have that one listed. We posted it through the Cary News Weekly on Friday, or I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Okay.
It went out community-wide to the mailing list, and I'll check on the website aspect. If it's not there, we'll make sure it's on page 1.
I don't think that we put it on the website yet, but
Oh, okay.
it did go out.
We'll do that in the morning.
But yeah, we'll get it.
It's a good comment.
Yep.
If there's anybody here that hasn't signed up for the Cary News Weekly, please do that. Go to our site and register for that email. And you guys too. I hope you do.
Okay, before we move on, I would just like to make sure we've addressed Trustee Krause's comment. He asked for some documentation, and I just want to be clear on what you want and when and those kind of things.
Well, why are we creating the committee? I mean, you know, it said on the email blast, a sounding board, you know, but what are the goals of this committee? What is the objective? What are they going to be advising us on? You know, are they going to be advising us on anything? You know, I didn't even realize we had made them. I know we talked about it last time, but I didn't realize it had gone to the point where we were actually collecting names now and it was moving forward. I thought we were going to have a little more discussion. Dave wanted to get the description of what Mr. Simmons' position is in terms of the economic development part of his job. I was looking for some of the old minutes that we had from previous boards when
Sitting
they
on my
had
desk.
discussed that. Okay.
I have a pile of documents from 2004 and earlier, and I thought we were going to meet last week, and you couldn't make it. So I have that information. I don't believe the job description aspect of this is germane to what we're talking about. I really don't. This is a separate group of volunteer residents that is designed to be a sounding board for staff and the village board. I absolutely do think that it can be, from a task force basis, a group that you send issues to for their feedback directly. I think that based on how well the group works together, I think we probably once a month or once every other month basis, we have enough business. I think I can fill an agenda up for that group for at least a year without spending too much time on it. I think it's the idea, the concept that we were told to proceed with is that let's give it a chance. And the more complicated we make it, the harder it gets to get it, pushed forward onto our agenda. But I'm glad to make sure there's enough buy-in from the whole village board, about what this group is going to be asked to do. I also know that I've seen at least one, very solid, interested candidate. I haven't seen paperwork yet, but I think there are a few others that can pop forward that we can make immediate impact with. I think it's going to be helpful to you. I don't think it's designed to be at all what was here in 2004 and previous, which seemed like a very bureaucratic structure for how we operated. And that's the opposite of what this is designed to be. And I think it's tied to finding the right 3-4 people and giving it a chance. I'm glad to provide whatever other documentation you would like, but I purposely tried to make it not complicated.
So this is on that same point, and this is the feedback that I got, talked to a couple of people. And again, I mean, philosophically, I like the idea of a volunteer committee. Making it a criteria that they have to be a business owner, I'm not, that's a non-starter. We have people that, I mean, you could have an economics professor here that, lives in the village and then they couldn't participate, or a resident, who has a lot of good ideas. So I know it makes it a little tougher to screen, but then you look at the fact that 50% of businesses fail after, 4 or 5 years. So what makes them be an expert?
I think too, we've added in the application, just ideally, it'd be nice if someone has some business experience.
That'd be great. I just didn't want it to exclude them. Steve, anyway.
Not an absolute,
Okay.
we try to give some
I think it's
context to
fluid.
what would be ideas
There's
of
a
solid
final-
candidates, but
I don't know.
as far as I'm concerned, I do think it matters that they're a Cary resident.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they can come from a private sector approach, from small business, or from corporate, or from consulting, or from finance. I mean, there's so many different folks that we have in the community that are looking for a convenient way to volunteer that isn't an every, once a month or twice a month meeting at 7 o'clock at night. We've purposely tried to schedule this as a concept where maybe it's a breakfast meeting at 8 o'clock from 8 to 9 o'clock. Maybe it's at lunch. Maybe it's at a different time when
Maybe
you might
one's
be
in the
able to-
morning, one's in the evening.
Right, exactly. And you might be able to have, by being a little flexible about, all the rules, that we are able to attract some people that normally we couldn't get.
Sure.
So that's the idea.
All right, but I still do want, and maybe you can clear it up just in a sit down in your office of, I want to make sure that it's different from what Brian does. It shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't be the same.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss real estate pertaining purchase or lease, personnel, specifically appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Whether or not you can take any action after executive session.
I don't think it's not on there.
I know.
I will entertain a motion to return from executive session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I should have figured that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 8:40, not so bad.